Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a concept that honestly feels a little rebellious in today's landscape, the power of the quiet life. Because let's face it, we live in a world that absolutely worships noise. The loudest voice in the room? Yeah, that's usually the one that wins. The biggest, most outlandish personality inevitably grabs the spotlight. And it just seems like the most visible person, the one constantly broadcasting their every single move online, is the one who gets all the opportunities. But we're going to push back against those exhausting demands of our modern world.
I mean, everywhere you look, the messaging is just relentless. Hustle harder, do more, be more, show more. It's this exhausting drumbeat that we are all subjected to from the literal second we wake up and check our screens. We are constantly told that if we aren't grinding, expanding, and performing 24/7, we're somehow falling behind.
Okay, let's dive into this, because somewhere in the middle of all this crazy societal noise, seeking a quiet life actually began to carry a pretty heavy stigma. The loud life gets rewarded with the spotlight, endless opportunities, and this total glamorization of the hustle. But the quiet life? Society has basically painted that as a failure, as giving up, as settling for less, or just not being enough. But what if our modern society has this completely backwards?
Well, there is the incredible truth that completely flips the script. The greatest minds in human history, they didn't just tolerate the quiet life, they deliberately chose it. They absolutely did not view a quiet existence as some sort of consolation prize for people who couldn't cut it in the loud world. They sought it out. They defended it. They chose it over everything else because they realized that in the silence, in the unhurried ordinary days, lay the ultimate prize.
Section 1. Claiming yourself for yourself. The Stoic approach to reclaiming time.
The ancient Roman philosopher Seneca wrote a letter to his friend Lucilius, and it opens with this incredibly profound instruction: Ita fac, mi Lucilius, vindica te tibi, which translates to, do this, my Lucilius, claim yourself for yourself. Take a second to really let that sink in. Claim yourself for yourself. Not for your career, not for your public reputation online, and certainly not for the endless demands of a world that is always going to want more from you. Seneca was issuing a dire warning against sacrificing your very essence just to meet worldly demands.
And Seneca was writing this from a place of real observation. He had literally watched incredibly powerful, wealthy men completely destroy themselves in the pursuit of more. And he noticed this devastating three-step cycle that played out every single time. First, they accumulate more influence, more wealth, more recognition. Second, every single new acquisition creates a brand new fear, this paralyzing fear of losing exactly what they just gained, which leads directly to the third step, vastly increased anxiety. They weren't getting happier at all. They were just getting more terrified.
Seneca firmly believed the quiet life was the cure to this anxiety. And it wasn't about retreating from living. It was about the fullest possible engagement with what actually mattered. He boiled it down to 3 simple rules. Stop performing, stop accumulating, stop chasing. When you just remove all of these unnecessary, exhausting actions, what you are left with is your actual life. And your actual life, it's always more than enough.
Section 2. The Formula for Tranquility, Epicurus and the Math of Happiness.
So Epicurus is famously misunderstood as this philosopher of luxury and grand feasts. But in reality, his idea of a raging good time was hanging out in a simple garden with maybe a small pot of cheese and his close friends. He called this state ataraxia. It translates to tranquility of mind. Epicurus believed this was the absolute highest form of happiness available to a human being. It is not the happiness of getting what you want, but the profound, deep happiness of wanting almost nothing. And this brilliantly illustrates his core philosophy. Epicurus famously wrote that if you wish to make someone rich, do not add to their store of money, but subtract from their desires. I mean, it's a brilliant inversion of how we normally think, right? The loud world tells you to focus on the left side, add to your money, add to your status. The quiet life, it focuses on the right side, subtract your desires. Which brings us to the ultimate math of happiness. 0. The quieter your life, the fewer things you need to be happy, the happier you will actually be. Needing 0 things to be happy means that having almost nothing is already having everything. This wasn't just some abstract philosophy for him. Epicurus viewed this as a literal, highly practical formula for living a good life.
Moving on to Section 3. The Power of Small Things, Eastern Philosophies of Effortless Flow.
Over in ancient China, the Taoists developed this really beautiful concept called Wu Wei. It translates to effortless action or natural living, sometimes called the way of water. The philosopher Lao Tzu wrote, Nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. Just think about that metaphor for a second. A tree doesn't strain to grow, a river doesn't force its path, the seasons don't rush. Everything gets done in its own time, completely without that exhausting pretense that more effort automatically equals better results. The quiet life is a life that simply flows.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the modern internet has completely misunderstood this ancient wisdom. You've probably seen those viral diagrams for the Japanese concept of Ikigai, which usually gets defined as your reason for being. Well, the Western internet version tells you Ikigai is your grand purpose, your massive legacy, your huge impact on the world. But the actual Japanese concept is radically different. It's not found in some grand legacy, it's found in small things. Your morning cup of tea, a walk to the garden, the simple satisfaction of a task done well.
In fact, when Japanese centenarians, people living past 100 years old, are asked about their secret to a long life, almost none of them talk about massive achievements. They talk about a simple daily routine, the small pleasures of life, and having something quiet to look forward to every single morning. In Japan, the quiet life definitely isn't a lesser life. It is literally the life most likely to be long, healthy, and genuinely happy.
Section 4. Living deliberately. The 19th century transcendentalist concept.
So, jumping over to 19th century America, Henry David Thoreau famously pioneered this exact concept during his 2-year experiment living totally alone in a small cabin. He grew his own food, he walked, he observed, and he wrote this quote which has honestly never stopped being true. "I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, and not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived." Living deliberately means acting with the full knowledge of exactly what you are doing and why you are doing it. It's the ultimate rejection of living frantically, reacting to everything, and living according to everyone else's timeline.
But here is an absolutely crucial point to understand about Thoreau. He wasn't demanding that we all abandon society and go live in a hut. In fact, fun historical secret, while Thoreau was living in the woods, he frequently went home to have his mother do his laundry. The point he was trying to make was to provide a framework. The spirit of the woods, that deliberateness, that willingness to constantly ask what is actually necessary, can be lived perfectly well right in the middle of a busy, connected city. It's a mindset. It's not a location.
Which brings us to our final section, choosing your actual life, reclaiming what is yours.
So how does all of this philosophy actually apply to you, right now in your modern existence? Look, the quiet life does not mean a life without passion or ambition or engagement with the world, not at all. It means choosing exactly where your energy goes. We spend so much of our time performing for invisible audiences online, wading in shallow waters, and just accepting obligations out of pure fear. The quiet life means living for the actual people right in front of you. It means fewer notifications and way more presence, fewer obligations from fear, and more commitments made from genuine care. Ultimately, it means choosing your noise rather than just passively inheriting the busyness all around you.
To bring this whole narrative full circle, let's look at what Seneca wrote near the very end of his life. Omnia aliena sunt, tempus tantum nostrum est. Everything else belongs to others. Time alone is ours. The quiet life isn't about withdrawing from the world itself. It's about withdrawing from everything in the world that was never truly yours to begin with, all that imposed noise, those borrowed ambitions. Choosing quiet allows you to gratefully return to what is actually yours, your attention, your time, and your presence.
So, as we wrap up this explainer today, I really want to leave you with a reflection. If you completely stripped away everything from your life that you do out of pure obligation or comparison or fear, what would actually remain? What would your days look like if they were designed for depth rather than performance, for your actual life rather than the one you just think you're supposed to have? That quieter, simpler life, it isn't waiting for you in some distant future. It's available to you right now, in the very next moment you decide not to fill the silence and simply let it be.